Welcome back to All Talk. I'm Kevin Dietz, 1-800-859-0957, 1-800-859-0WJR. You can call or text. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has voiced strong support for abolishing the Electoral College, calling it an outdated system that undermines the democratic process. Not so fast, says Kamala Harris. The campaign for Vice President Kamala Harris has clarified that this stance does not reflect their official position. What is going on? Let's bring in Dave Dulio, Director of the Center for Civic Engagement and Political Science, Professor at Oakland University. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Good morning, Kevin.
I think if you're going to say that you want to abolish, you're in favor of abolishing the Electoral College, you should probably say it a really long time away from an actual election that's coming up, because it seems to me like you're telling an awful lot of voters that they're not terribly important. We only care about the majority rules, and we're going to really get after, say, California, New York, the biggest states with the most people, and all these poor little states. Yeah, too bad. We're not going to worry about you.
Yeah, it also seems like it would be something that you should check with your boss with before you make that kind of statement. This is something that is not new. It comes up every 4 years, and there are calls and reform proposals that are all over the place to change the way we select our president. And, I think sometimes it gets misconstrued, what the Electoral College is, what it was meant to be. And those things are debatable. But it's also true that has generally fallen along partisan lines, because Democrats see that they have a disadvantage. And that is true. Republicans have over time had an Electoral College advantage because they win. Republican candidates tend to win more states than Democrats do. But the evidence in the last couple cycles and continuing through 2024, by the way, is that Republican Electoral College advantage is actually shrinking as some states move in and out of that swing state, battleground state category.
When it comes to the popular vote versus the Electoral College, how often does it happen where somebody wins the Electoral College and becomes president but did not win the most votes, the popular vote?
It's happened 5 times in history. And, I think we have some recency bias because 2 of them happened recently, 2016 as well as 2000. But then before that, you got to go back to the 1800s before you find another instance of that.
Okay, so usually the person who becomes president wins both of those. When you talk about the pros and cons of the popular vote, what do they say the pros are for switching to a popular vote?
Well, I think it's simpler for sure, and probably easier to understand than let's just call it a unique system that we have in the Electoral College. And I also think that it makes sense, right, to say we're going to pick a president and everybody gets a vote, and that's how we add them up, and most votes wins.
And when you look at the cons of that, or when you look at the reason why people would favor the Electoral College, what is the main point of that?
Yeah, and it's important to point out that you're doing, right, that there are advantages to the Electoral College. And I'll just give you 2. Number 1 is it cuts down on campaign spending. Believe it or not, right, it cuts down on campaign spending. Imagine if this was a national popular vote election, the amount of money that would be spent in places on TV ads and in the mail. We're in the billions of dollars already, when there are just really 7 swing states where this money is concentrated. And similarly, imagine in an election that's going to be as close as this one, having to do a recount nationwide of 160, 170 million votes. In the current system, we limit that to, a handful of states. So there are reasons to like the Electoral College, and frankly, reasonable people can disagree on whether it's a good system, whether it's a bad system. One other thing I would say is that we we execute the idea of the Electoral College today very differently than the framers had in mind when they crafted it in the late 1700s.
So Michigan went from 16 to 15 Electoral College votes. That happens because of population decline. But explain sort of how that works. Like they try and keep each state relevant. So if you have a really small state like Rhode Island, they're not going to have equal Electoral College votes to California.
Correct, and it's each state gets an amount of electoral votes that's equal to the number of U.S. House seats that they have and the number of U.S. Senate seats that they have, and there's an argument, and I think there's good evidence to make it that it was the inclusion of those senatorial electors, those 2 for every state, that actually got the small states behind this idea at the Constitutional Convention, which is another element of this, right? I don't think one of the framers of the Constitution would have said at the end of the process, boy, that's my ideal system. Not at all.
Right. This
was the best deal that they could strike.
Yeah, they had to battle it out and try and figure out all the things that could happen and what would be the best of, maybe not two evils, but the best of the propositions that were presented.
Absolutely.
Why did Kamala Harris's team have to come out so fast and clarify Tim Walz?
Well, I think that they probably don't want to be seen as arguing against a constitutional provision right before an election.
Okay. So Donald Trump's in town at the Detroit Economic Club. It just seems to show how important Michigan is. We just keep having visit after visit from the presidential candidates and the vice presidential candidates. How important are Michigan's 15 Electoral College votes the way this thing is shaping up with just a few weeks to go?
They are absolutely critical, and it seems like it's going to be Michigan or Pennsylvania that this whole thing comes down to, where whoever wins one of those states is likely to be the next president of the United States.
And right now, it's a toss-up in Michigan. Is it a toss-up in Pennsylvania as well?
It is. I have not seen an election in my memory where the battleground states are all so incredibly close. It is razor thin in Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and yes, Michigan.
So we really don't know which state will be the state, because all of those could go in a variety of different ways. If you turn one of them, you turn Arizona from the way you think it's going to go to the other way, it changes the value of another state.
Yep, I would agree with that. I would also say, too, that the Midwest is arguably the most important region. If Kamala Harris wins Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, in addition to the other ones that she's predicted to win that are solid Democratic, she would win. She would have 270 electoral votes, the bare minimum needed to become president-elect. So Trump desperately needs one of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and then needs to pretty much sweep the South.
And they don't always vote the same way, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania.
No, we've seen some differences in the last several cycles between those states for sure.
All right. Well, we're definitely going with the Electoral College in this election. We can talk. we can talk about the popular vote next time around. David Dulio, Oakland University political science professor. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin. Go Tigers.
All right. Go Tigers. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to All Talk on